Hello, everyone. Welcome to Million Marker Instagram Live. My name is Jenna. I'm the founder and CEO of Million Marker. And we're super excited today to have a special guest. I actually recorded a podcast with her a little while ago. At the heart of what we do at Million Marker is to help people live healthier life by limiting their plastic exposures as plastic disrupts our hormones and disrupts our environment. And living consciously is really, really important. And that's why we're really excited to have Nika Lawrie joining us. So I'm going to invite her. She is. So Nika is the founder and CEO of Moringa Health and Wellness. Oh, hi, Nika.
Hi, Jenna.
How are you?
I'm good. Is there, on my side, there's a line cutting me in half. Can you guys see me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Okay,
You're good.
perfect.
I
I'll
was
just
I
yield
was
it.
just about to to read your introduction.
Oh, perfect. I'll let you finish.
Awesome. Okay. So Nika is the founder of CEO of Moringa Health and Wellness. It's a multimedia and a lifestyle company that really marries functional health and nutrition with natural and sustainable living, which is really awesome. Nika also have many titles that includes certified functional nutrition counselor, certified integrative nutrition health coach, um, and really special. She actually grew up off the grid, which we're going
You
to
did.
talk about because it's like a super interesting story, and we can't wait to hear more. So thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining us today.
Oh, Jenna,
Um,
thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you and just join you today.
awesome. So you have like a lot of amazing things going on that's
Oh,
going to be super beneficial for all viewers, and then especially who are looking to detox their bodies. And then you have like
absolutely.
multimedia ventures, apothecary, apothecary, and then also coaching. And
hmm
could you tell
hmm
us a little bit about each of these avenues, and then the service
Yeah.
that you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really do. I focus on functional nutrition and environmental health. So really looking at the connections between toxic exposures. So similar to you guys, looking at BPA's, phthalates, um, parabens. I also look at exposures on a bio individual level. So looking at gluten issues, dairy issues, soy, corn, all those kind of things that might be affecting somebody's health. And so, as a functional nutritionist, I really kind of work with them hands on. And what we really do is kind of go through their home, look at their everyday environment, and help them identify the toxins that might be affecting their health, and then help them either reduce or completely eliminate the vast majority of toxins that are in their home. Obviously, you can't eliminate everything. Perfection's not the goal here, but really drastically reducing them and really educating people on identifying what is going on inside their body and what might be causing those issues. On the other side of that too, I also started a small product line. So it's Moringa Clean Apothecary. And that's really just kind of home goods. It's soaps. We're working on lotions right now. We've got lots of bath goodies, so essential oils, bath salts, all those kinds of things. And they are completely green, completely non-toxic. And we really work hard to make sure that the packaging is sustainable as well.
Awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's like music to our ears. We
Oh,
love
good.
this.
Yeah.
So what led you, beyond such a career path?
Well, so like you mentioned, I had kind of an interesting upbringing. I grew up off the grid outside of the mountains of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when I say off the grid, I mean like we had solar panels before it was cool. Nobody even knew what it was back then. This is like 30, 40, 50 years ago, even for my parents. My parents still live that way. They collected rainwater and filtered it the same way you would think of like reverse osmosis or like the filters you have in your fridge. So they filter so it's super clean. And then, we still like had normal things and we would buy food at the grocery store, but my mom was always like really conscious about what she brought into her homes in that sense. And so I had this very kind of earth connected uh, relationship growing up, just understanding, that it's important that we're conscious of the impact that we're making on the earth. And then I drastically rebelled and I moved to New York and Los Angeles, and I worked in the entertainment industry, which is one of like the worst places you could work toxin wise. And, I did all kinds of crazy stuff there. And I did that for years. And what I found was that my health degraded, and that I ended up, kind of depressed. I had anxiety. I was starting to struggle with some health issues myself. I was still pretty young, mid to late 20s. But I just didn't feel great. And so I decided to move back home to New Mexico, where I had the opportunity to work for the Alzheimer's Association here. And so through that, I had the honor of working with some of the top dementia researchers in the world. And through that opportunity, the biggest thing I learned was that there is a huge, huge connection between what we eat, our daily lifestyle, like the habits and activities we have, and then toxic exposure to brain health. And that kind of started the rabbit hole for me that I went down. And now I'm obsessed with toxins and exposures and food and nutrition and how it affects our body. So it's kind of a long-winded story, but it led me to where I am today. So.
Oh, this is amazing. And then that's why you build your brand, like living consciously. And then your
Absolutely.
parents already gave you that seed, like from a
They
long, long
did.
time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You rebel, but you always end up kind of coming back to what your parents do as hard as you try to escape it. So, yeah.
Exactly. So tell us, like, what does living consciously mean to you?
Yeah. So for me, it was originally trying to figure out. So I knew I was really into like sustainability and environmental health. And then I was really into nutrition and functional medicine. And I was trying to figure out, like, how do I intertwine the two? How do they really connect? And when I realized that they both come back to really living consciously. And what I mean by that is really looking at the decisions we're making for everyday activities, everyday choices. So I really try to drive home the idea of being conscious about what we're doing, what we're purchasing, the
Mhm.
activities we're taking part in, because not only will it have a huge impact on your own health and your family's health and well-being, it has a huge impact on the planet and the planet's
Yep.
well-being and sustainability and all these issues we're facing with climate change. And so it really kind of filtered into that conscious living idea, the two of them.
So talk about, you mentioned about our shopping choices. So how does our
Yeah.
shopping choices impact our health and also the planet?
Oh man, I mean, I could get on the soapbox here for hours, but I'll give you like one example. So you think about, everyone talks about plastics, right? Especially like the conversation around
Hmm.
BPA, BPF, BPS, and I learned from you there's a whole other series of BPs that we haven't really investigated or dived into really yet. And so thinking about plastic, we already know that the water bottles are causing issues in the oceans and the sea. It's affecting marine life. It's affecting the coral reefs, all those kind of things. It's not being recycled the way we think it's being recycled. It's basically being packaged up and sent to a third world country. So even when you think you're doing the right thing by recycling, usually what's happening is it's being sent to the third world country, and then they start massive fires to burn it all and melt it all. And so that creates CO2 issues and greenhouse gas issues. And so there's issue there. But on top of that, these plastic bottles, there's BPA leaching into the water. There's other chemicals that leach out to that in our food, especially if we're putting things like fatty foods, like you think
Hmm.
oils, like peanut butter. Spaghetti sauce is a big one. They put it into the Tupperware things, those the storage containers that are plastic, and these chemicals leach into our food and our water. And as you know, and I'm sure some of the followers know, this has a huge impact on our health. It affects our endocrine system. It affects, every little messenger that's going on in our body. It affects our liver, our gut microbiome, which is where, the vast majority of our immune system sits. So it can have this huge impact on both sides. And that's just one example. That is literally just, plastic water bottles or Tupperware containers. And so when you start looking at, beauty and cosmetic products, you look at the pesticides that are used in our
Hmm.
food and how that's affecting the soil and also affecting the microbiome of our body. There's so many issues here And so it's really up to us to decide how we want to make those choices and to start expecting better from the manufacturers that are selling us these products.
100%, like
Yeah.
totally. Uh, so some people think about living consciously as just, being aware of their actions, being nice to people, but then
Mm-hmm.
there are also, there's a bit of separation between their shopping choices and then, and actually living consciously. Like, why do you think
Absolutely.
there's like some kind of like a cognitive dissonance regarding
You
that?
know, I honestly think, and I am no way meaning to say this in an insulting way. I think there's just a lack of education. I think what's happening right now, because I know I was completely in the dark before I started to really research this and learn it for myself. And then I became obsessed because I was like, why is this like humans? We basically had a century long science experiment happen to us with
Yeah.
all of the chemicals that have been put into all of our products, and they haven't been tested for safety or efficacy, and we don't yet know the long-term ramifications. And understanding that, this is a generational issue. So, what my grandmother was faced with versus my mother was faced
Mhm.
with versus what I took in versus, all of the toxins that now my daughter has to deal with. These things get passed on genetically generation to generation too. And so we don't know the long-term effects. And I think the vast majority of the population doesn't even know that this is a real issue. And so I think the disconnect there is lack of awareness, lack of education. And that's not necessarily, the consumer's fault, because
Mhm.
the information is just now sort of coming to the forefront. And I think the information is not easily accessible. I think we're
Mhm.
getting there. But I know, I'm obsessed with this stuff, and it still takes me a long time to like
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. And I have to actually go read like the research articles on like PubMed and stuff. Who wants
Yeah.
to do that? Nobody wants to do that. The average consumer is not on PubMed reading it, right? And so I think it's it's that disconnect between awareness and purchasing the product.
I guess it's a problem, but also opportunity. That's why, like, you and I are
Absolutely.
here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we can
Yeah,
actually trying to help people increase their awareness and then be more conscious of
yeah.
their shopping behaviors and everything. You
That's
also
my
mentioned oh, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
no, no. Go. I was just that's my biggest motivator, is to help people learn about this, and so that they're empowered to make those changes in their own life.
Agree. You mentioned about, personal care products. What
Mm-hmm.
are some of the things you think about before you make any personal care product purchase?
Biggest thing is phthalates and parabens. I think you probably know that, but
Yeah.
I really try to look for anything that does not have fragrance or aroma or perfume listed in the ingredients. That can be extraordinarily hard, but there are some really cool apps that have come out in the last couple of years that have made that a lot easier. I think not. I don't mean to promote any specific app, because there's a bunch of them that are really good. Yuka, Y-U-K, is actually my
Mhm.
favorite now, because they give you some alternative suggestions when you scan something. So you just scan a barcode and it'll tell you what's in it ingredient wise. But I think for me, for years, I would go in and I'd look at these different ingredients and try to figure out what all these crazy words meant. And, and then I'd have to like pull out my spreadsheet of like, is this safe? Is it not? Kind of figuring it all out. But I think now there's starting to be a lot more alternatives. So it's becoming easier and easier to make those shifts. So again, the biggest thing for me is parabens and phthalates. I think the other thing too is being really cautious with makeup.
Mhm.
Understanding that like I actually just posted kind of a reminder post yesterday, the laws regulating cosmetics haven't been updated in almost 100 years. It was
Yeah.
1938. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that is terrifying. And that it's up to the manufacturers to
Yep.
regulate themselves. Like, that is horrifying. Like, we are guinea pigs. It's uh, it's safe until proven otherwise by the consumer, and I'm not okay with that. Like, my life to me is worth more than some manufacturer testing something on me. And I think, you know, it goes back to, I don't think consumers realize that. I think we as Americans believe that the FDA and other regulatory organizations are regulating these products. And the truth is that they're not.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It is.
That's another
Yeah.
point of why everyone should be more conscious. You mentioned a few app. We also have a partner also trying to make everybody's life easier selecting these products. Midori. So Midori
Hmm.
Earth is also doing a good job that they made a Chrome and Safari extension. So if you
Oh,
actually
nice. I
shop
haven't
at
seen the
Amazon
extensions yet. Yeah.
or like Sephora or somewhere, you can actually directly screen for that. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's pretty easy. And then we're also trying to select approved products. So we have a whole list of product that's approved on our website to kind of
Yeah.
like help people pare down, like not looking at thousands of products.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I try to do the same thing, is kind of do some comparison options there too. And then knowing that there's actual companies now that are specifically focusing on selling just clean makeup or selling just clean personal care products too. And I don't mean like a specific brand. I mean like there are companies that you just go to the website and they have a bunch of different brands, but they've tested them for um, non-synthetic or clean makeup options.
Yeah, it's a trend, which is like really awesome to see.
I love it. Yeah, come a long
So
way.
yeah, so we covered like a personal care product. What about food purchase? Because that's
Yeah,
like another big exposure.
absolutely. So I think for me, one of the biggest ones that I'm always, so I think there's two prongs here. I think understanding where there's some exposure and then figuring out how you can mitigate that while still balancing your checkbook, right? Because there's a lot of uncertainty around organic foods or, you know, canned foods versus frozen and what the options are. And my biggest thing is that I try to tell people to buy organic as much as possible. I know that's not always accessible to people, and I know sometimes that can be more costly. If buying organic, it needs to be limited in a certain person's buying abilities. I think the biggest thing to know is berries. Always buy berries organic. That's the first and foremost thing. Berries, spinach, leafy greens, those kind of things. I think you and I talked about this in our podcast episode too. So it's
Yeah.
always the berries. I think about non-organic blueberries as like the little toxin pills, right? So
Bums.
those are the biggest ones. I think, you know, if you can't buy organic, any vegetable is going to be better than no vegetables. So still try to bring those into your life as much as possible. But a great place to check out is actually the frozen food aisle. I think you can look for organic frozen foods that tend to be more cheaper.
Mhm.
Um, you want to avoid canned food as much as possible. There's a lining inside the can that has BPA in it, and that can be a pretty major issue again for endocrine disruptors. I think frozen foods sometimes left, you know, people don't think it's as healthy, but it's
Mhm.
usually flash frozen when the vegetable is at its freshest point. And so it's a viable option if you can't go for that totally fresh organic vegetable. I think it's a great way to bring that in, and it's a great way to do, you know, smoothies or
Mhm.
stir fries, things like that. And so it's a good alternative.
These are great tips. So what are other tips that, can a person live more consciously?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest ones that actually really has very little to do with toxins and food for me is to be more minimalistic. And I don't mean, you know, you don't have to sell everything you own and, you know, sleep on the floor without a bed. I think the idea of minimalism has kind of been blown out of proportion a little bit through the internet sphere. But I think, you know, we can be a lot more conscious about the items that we're bringing into our home and how they affect us, both mentally and physically. I think, you know, when our space feels really cluttered, we
Mhm.
feel anxious, we feel overwhelmed, we aren't as creative, we aren't as focused, and it can actually have some pretty major issues on our mental health or and physical health too. Understanding that clutter is a great place for kind of toxins to hide. So
Mhm.
everything in your house is always off gassing. Not everything, but most plastics
Yeah.
and things like that are off gassing. And so the dust that we have in our house can actually be pretty toxic. And
Mhm.
so understanding that having lots of clutter actually adds to that dust. And so, trying to be more minimalistic about the things that we bring in our house. Does it have a purpose? Am I using it regularly? If not, can it go to better use somewhere else? Maybe donating it to a charity, maybe, giving it away to a friend who doesn't have one, anything like that. Find a better option for it. A couple of the other like real easy free things that people can do, open their windows. I know that sounds silly, but the air in our house gets really toxic and really congested. And sometimes it's a lot worse than the air outside, even when we live in big metropolitan cities. So just opening up your windows, your doors a couple times a day, even just once a day, if that's all you can do, that will free up or kind of bring in some fresh air and get things cleaned out and kind of cycled out a little bit. And then I think the other thing too is understand the toxins that are in your water. Water is a big one that I think a lot of people miss. So people think about, when we talk about toxins, people always think about makeup and personal care products first, because I think that's getting popularized. People think less about like the furniture and our other belongings. And then people don't really think about water at all. And, the last couple of years, we've seen some big stories with like lead and pipes and things like that. So it's starting to get more popularized, but I think there's a big gap there. And a lot of people assume that water is clean. It comes through the city's, quote unquote, cleaning it. But there's a lot of chemical toxins that are missed or are not even required to be filtered out. And so I think that's a huge issue. And there's different things you can do. You can buy different water filters. You can do a reverse osmosis system if you want. Be cautious with that and water usage, because it can be a sustainable water issue too. So it kind of depends on what you have there. And then I think the other thing is getting your water tested if you have the ability to do that too. There's a lot of different organizations that do testing. I know the Environmental Working Group provides a kind of a basic database that you can use your zip code to check your water quality. I live in Albuquerque, and we're known for having pretty decent water quality here. But even that, like, I think there's 16 or 17 contaminants that are still a concern here. And so it's worth just kind of checking that out and reviewing it for yourself too in your area.
Wow, I love these tips. Can you hear me? You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I think it may have froze. There we go.
Okay, all good. No, I love these tips. Actually, like
Oh, good.
decluttering is one of my New Year resolution. So I can actually reduce my toxic exposure and also think less brain fog for me, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. So in right when the pandemic started in 2020, I went through my entire house top to bottom, and I've always been the person that kind of got rid of stuff, but I literally cleaned out half of what I own. And oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'm so much happier now. Like, everything has a spot. I mean, it was some serious work. It took time. I did it over a couple of months. But it was one of the best things I've ever done, for sure.
Yeah, and I also love your point on water. There's actually resources besides EWG's tap water database. Simple Labs actually do water testing.
That's who I
So
was gonna suggest.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
actually planning to have Johnny on to do an Instagram live with us to talk about water testing.
Oh, awesome.
So
Cool.
yeah,
I
they test for
think
a lot of them.
Tap Score, I think, is the other good
Yes.
one too. Yeah. So there's a couple options there. And then I think it varies depending on price point too. So you can decide what fits into your budget and how much information you want. And then from there, there's a lot of different filter choices that are available to you too that match different price points too.
Love it. So we talk about these tips, and then I'm a foodie. So like, what kind of food do you recommend to your clients?
So that really is dependent on the individual because, we talk about toxins all the time as like kind of chemical exposures. We
Hmm.
talk about, pesticides, parabens, all those kind of things. But it's really important for people to understand that there are specific toxins specific to that person. I didn't say that well, but let me give you an example. So some people who have celiac disease,
Hmm.
gluten is going to be a real toxin to them in that sense. People who are lactose or casein intolerant, I am casein intolerant, and so dairy is an issue for me.
Hmm.
There are people that are going to have, nut allergies or soy or corn, all those kind of things. I think those are the big ones to understand, and understanding that really is going to be specific to
Hmm.
you and your individual needs. And so the best way to do that is actually to just kind of test it out, doing a science experiment on yourself. Try to eliminate some of those highly inflammatory foods for a while and see how you feel. Do you feel better when you're off dairy? Do you not? Does it not have an effect? It's about 75% of people actually have a lactose intolerance. We just
Hmm.
don't know because we've been on dairy our entire lives.
Yeah.
And even people who aren't full-blown celiacs or don't have full-blown celiac disease, the vast majority of us actually have a hard time processing gluten in our body. So it can be a pretty major issue in that sense too. And so really starting to kind of grasp that and understand how those specific things affect your body, really, really important. And then the last one I would add that is, the quote unquote toxin in my book, that's not necessarily toxin, is refined sugar. And so I don't think you need to give up sweets completely. I'm not asking you to like never eat, a cookie again. But I think if we can drastically cut down the amount of refined sugar we're taking in, I think that's a huge benefit for our body overall. One of the important things to know about refined sugar is one, there's a lot of chemicals and things that go with
Hmm.
creating the refined sugar and processing it and getting it out of the cane. There's also pesticides and stuff
Hmm.
that are going along creating the sugar in the first place. And then the vast majority of the sugar is grown in Florida, and it's having a huge negative impact on the
Hmm.
Everglades as well.
Hmm.
So there's a sustainability issue there too. But back to my point, the biggest thing to understand about general refined sugar is that not only is it zero nutrients going in, it actually it steals nutrients from your body to process it through your body. And so it's like a double negative whammy. And so
Yeah.
the more you can reduce it, the better off you're going to be in that sense.
Makes total sense. I love
Yeah.
your expertise and also the personalized approach.
Oh,
So
yeah. Thanks.
tell us like what's a typical session with you look like? Because you offer many different packages.
Yeah, so I work with individuals and families. I work with health professionals, and then I work a little bit with businesses as well, kind of talking about how to avoid greenwashing and how not to, how to actually make your business a little bit more sustainable and non-toxic for your consumers. But the biggest area I work with is families and individuals, and I go into their homes or I go over Zoom with them. We do a long session Zoom call. And we literally just go room by room and we identify where toxins might be hidden. We talk about their personal health issues. So whether that is, heart disease or cancer or autoimmune issue or diabetes or you name it, pretty much any major health condition at this point has some kind of link to toxic exposure. Infertility, big one, right? PCOS, those kind of things. And so I work with them to really identify where the exposures might be. We help identify removing those specific items, so whether that's personal care or food or water or whatever. And then we really talk about how to replace all those items. So a lot of times we'll do store shopping sessions together. And so we'll walk through the process of how to find alternative products to then replace the more toxic options so that they have a better ground to stand on, or foundation in that sense. And then that way they're really sustainable and able to do that on their own moving forward too. And then we also do coaching sessions after that. So we do the kind of the big cleanup, and then we do several sessions after that to meet with them and to kind of digest what we've learned and make sure that they have all the tools and resources they need to stand on their own 2 feet going forward.
Wow, this is like super comprehensive.
Oh,
Love it.
awesome. Yeah. I try to just make it as the least overwhelming it can possibly be because it's a little scary when you start down the rabbit hole.
Well, I think that's why people need you, right? Because you can kind of like hold their hands a bit in the beginning to really help them going on the right path, then they can be on their own.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really want to empower people to take control of their lives and make sure that they're, able to make this a lifelong process for them, so that they can continue to manage their own health journey. But it's really scary when you first start, not knowing what's safe, what's okay. Is this okay for my family? What do I bring
Mhm.
in? Where do I start? And so, yeah, it's reducing that overwhelm and really trying to simplify it.
Yeah, and then you're also doing that by selling your line of products. How do you choose that all the items that you have?
Oh my gosh, that has been an adventure. I am so particular about what comes in and what we use. Everything is fair trade. Everything is certified organic. Whenever it's the case for organic. Not all things are certified organic, but when we use a product that would fall into that category, we make sure. And then other than I have plastic lids for my spray caps and I have plastic lids for essential oils. They are fully recyclable, but other than that, everything is glass or sustainable packaging. And so we're really careful about reducing one, the packaging material, but
Mhm.
two, to avoid potential exposure from toxins. Like understanding, essential oils can pull toxins directly out of plastics, and so really making sure that those products aren't touching each other and being really careful about that. And so it has been a true adventure trying to find all the materials and packaging and stuff to get it all there. And so that's why we have spices, we have some teas that we're getting ready to launch. We've got soaps, we have essential oils, a couple things like that. We're working on lotions. Lotions have been difficult to find uh, all the materials to
Mhm.
manufacture it, and bottles that actually
Yeah.
make sense to carry. And so that's been an issue, but I'm a stickler about it. And so I'm not going to release anything until I feel like it's good and there in quality. So if I won't use it on myself or my daughter, I don't want to sell it to anybody else. So that's my biggest thing.
Love it. We'll be looking
Yeah.
out for those great
Awesome.
products.
Yeah, I'll keep
Um,
you posted too.
and now, last question. I know we're
Mhm.
a little bit over, but last question, because I think
Yeah.
this is a super valuable resource for people. So tell us about your podcast, the Living Consciously podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had you on recently, and I think your episode comes out. I think it's next week or maybe the week after. So I'm
Cool.
super excited about that. So my podcast again is called Conscious Living because it's really my focus is that kind of all encompassing. Vast majority of the episodes are with experts like you in different realms that relate to health and sustainability, functional nutrition, non-toxic living, those kind of things. And yeah, people can find it on all the major platforms under Conscious Living Podcast.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today. And then so everybody please follow Nika Lawrie and pretty much just Nika Lawrie
Yeah,
and also check out the podcast. And then we'll be sure to let everybody know when the episode comes out. We're also super, super excited. And
me
then
too. Yeah.
everyone can also check out learn more about Nika or even book a consultation at nikalawrie.com. And the
Absolutely.
website is also in the LinkedIn bio. So thank you, everyone. So thank you so much, Nika, for
Thank
joining. This
you,
is
Jenna.
like
I
so much
appreciate
fun.
it. Yeah, I know. I could talk to you forever. So I love it. Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll be talking soon.
Definitely. Bye.
Okay, bye.